Hi, everybody. This is Ray Hanania, and as you know, I'm a former journalist, and now I'm a columnist with suburban Chicagoland.com, the Reporter newspapers, the Southwest News Herald, and a couple other papers, including the Messenger Press. And one of the big issues that the people in Orland Park are facing is this issue of whether they should change their government from a village managerial form of government to something else, controlled, I think, by the mayor. But we're going to discuss that with somebody who I think really understands this issue better than anybody. My guest is Karie Friling. She's a former Orland Park Village employee, former director of development services, and former assistant village manager in those positions for 13 years with the village. She is in local government management today. She's been doing that for 30 years, so she has a lot of experience. And most importantly, she's from Orland Park. Her and her family have lived in Orland Park and continue to live in Orland Park for the past 20 years. She has a website called VoteYesOrland.com, which is the product of a committee, a group of people that feel very strongly about this issue. Karie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I understand. Let's talk first about what is the issue that people are going to deal with on the April 4th election. They're being asked to vote on a referendum. What is it that they're going to be asked, and what do you think how should they vote?
Well, the question that's on the April 4th ballot is, quote, is shall the village of Orland Park retain the managerial form of government? And based on my 30 years of experience in local government management, the answer to that question should be a resounding yes. We should keep the type of form of government that we have had since 1983. A little bit for the listeners is Fred Owens, our former mayor, was the one who went to the voters in 1983 and asked the voters to vote this in. The form of government is where the mayor and the board obviously report to the electorate, and then they have the responsibility and authority to appoint a professional village manager to run the day-to-day operations of the village. So it's a clear delineation between powers and authority. The powers rest with the board and the mayor to set policy, to engage with the public, to determine what those policies should be because they were voted in by the voters. And then they have the responsibility on our current form of government to hand that off to a group of professional managers, a village manager and his staff who are trained, educated, have the skills and experience to implement that policy in the best way possible for the entire community. Not just those that voted for the people in office, not just for a small group, but they have the expertise and the skills to actually be effective in implementing the goals set by the board. And that has worked very well.
So the village actually hires somebody, they hire them, they vet them, they interview them, they say, oh, wow, this person's great. The mayor and the trustees, they hire that person, they give them a contract based on the fact that they have all these skills from years of training in managing issues for municipalities and villages. So that's why they hire a village manager. The other reason, though, isn't it obvious, right? That the mayor is a part-time position. The mayor's not there every day. They're not paid for 40 hours a week. The trustees are paid a nominal fee. They're not running the village 40 hours a week. They're department heads, correct? And a village manager isn't a village manager essentially like a department head with broader powers to do for the mayor or the president of the village what the president of the village can't do because he's not there 40 hours a week?
Yes, it's no different than the private sector. I think the easiest way to explain it is that you have a Fortune 500 company, right? It's not a public entity. They have a board of directors. They have a chairman of the board, right? And they have a CEO. It's very similar in the public sector. You have the board, you have the president of the board, which is our mayor, and then you have a CEO that's been hired to run the day-to-day operations. They have the skills, they have the experience. And then they, from there, direct their department directors all the way down through the organization to make sure that they're successful in how they're taking that policy and implementing it. Same concept, just versus public versus private.
So this past Monday, there was a committee of the whole. And just for our listeners, the committee of the whole used to be a bunch of individual committees that focused on different things. But when Mayor Pekau came into power and took over not just was elected, but actually took over the board, he eliminated all the committees and created one committee that he technically controls. Now, to me, what I'm seeing is a politician pretty much taking control of every major decision in a smaller and smaller group. When we had committees, I think there were like 6, maybe 7 committees. I don't remember the number, but they would have 5 or 6 people on committees. They would meet, they'd be focused on that, and each committee would pay attention to that specific issue. Then they'd make a very reasoned and intelligent recommendation to the board and the mayor, and they would all act in this beautiful, open process of accountability. Now we have one committee of the whole, we have the mayor running it, and the village manager is the only outside person from that committee who does what he does and then presents it to the committee. What's the difference between what the mayor wants to do to eliminate that village managerial position? I mean, how does a government operate? Who's going to be there full time to do what needs to be done on a day-to-day basis, 40 hours or more a week?
So I'm not quite sure what the mayor was thinking, and I wouldn't begin to assume what the mayor of the board was thinking. What I can speak about is the difference between our form of government we have today and what he's asking the voters to change it to. And what he is asking the voters to do is change it to really a strong mayor form of government, where the mayor gets to assume a lot of the responsibilities and authority that our current village manager has by state statute. It's set by state law. We have a council manager form of government set by state law. There are other types of governments, such as the trustee mayor, which is what Mayor Pekau wants to change it to, where those responsibilities shift from a village manager to the mayor. So it will, in fact, give the mayor much more power, much more control. He will be able to do things that currently lie with our professional manager. He will assume those responsibilities and be able to make those decisions. So you're mixing the policy development with the day-to-day operations. There's no longer those lines between the two.
And what about the issue of other department heads? I mean, when you get rid of the village manager, he could pretty much then get rid of a lot of other people if he wanted to, right? And replace them with anybody with or without qualifications. What is that about? What can he do with that?
Yes, the power will be given to the mayor to hire and to fire our local department directors, their assistant directors. Pretty much it gives him the ability to reach deep into the day-to-day operations and the personnel who run those, and say, you're here, you're gone, or appoint and hire anyone that they want to. And the whole reason this type of government was created back in 1915 was to combat political corruption, and it's worked. Council manager form of government has stopped that. You don't hear very often city managers who have been arrested for fraud or a political abuse or any of those things like that. It really has stopped the corruption at the local level. And I think it's very important that we have a village manager who ultimately gets to hire those people. It should not rest with the elected board.
And also, I guess this brings up another point of consistency in policy too. I mean, you could pick one person, get rid of them, and now you got to start from scratch with understanding everything about the village. That this village is the biggest city between Chicago and Joliet, and it's not some tiny little Warren. It's a huge place.
We're talking about 150 million plus budget a year. We're talking about professional directors and assistant directors and people who this is their careers, not a job, their career.
Right.
They were trained, they went to school to be public servants. And it will impact our employees within the village. It will I have no doubt, we already know that our current village manager is a finalist in another community, looking to leave. I have no doubt we'll have additional directors who'll say, you know what, I'm not going to play these political games. This isn't what I signed up for. And it will have impact not just on retaining good quality employees, but recruiting them as well.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is that there's this perception that they're saying that the village managerial form of government, the village manager is not elected, so therefore he's not answerable to the people. But as I always understood it, the village manager would do his job, he'd present the information to the board, and the elected trustees and the mayor would say, I like it or I don't like it. Didn't they always have the option to say, we don't like what you're doing, go back and do it again?
Absolutely. That 100% rests with the entire board, not just the mayor, but the entire board, the trustees as well. And if they don't think that the village manager is performing in the manner they should, or they've asked him to go implement their policy directions and he or she has chosen not to do that, there's one employee that the board has control over, and that is a village manager. They can be fired. And
Right.
they have complete veto power over that. And that's intentional because again, the power does rest ultimately with the voters, the residents, goes to the board. The board says, okay, residents, what is important in our community? What should we be working on? They set that policy and then they hand it off to the professionals to get it done.
So the idea that the village manager is somehow he's not elected, he does everything on his own, and nobody has a choice, that's really not true. That's a fake. I would say that's
Absolutely.
an
And my argument to
exaggerated.
that, yeah, I'm sorry. My argument to that is that then what has our current village manager been doing? He was elected. He wasn't
Right.
elected. He was hired
He's
by this mayor. And
right.
from all accounts, has been doing, a good job, and so what does that mean? That for some reason, the mayor and the board haven't been held accountable because they hired their village manager? It makes it There's no common sense argument that makes sense for that because ultimately
I
the village manager always reports to that board.
I totally agree with that. I think that this argument that they're trying to say is we have to get rid of the village manager and give the power to the mayor because the mayor was elected, the village manager wasn't. Well, the mayor and the board hire the village manager, they give
Yes,
him a contract, they could then terminate his contract, deal with the contract provisions that they agreed to,
right.
and find somebody else to do whatever it is they want to do. So I read on Monday, this past Monday, the mayor, which I thought was very arrogant, introduced a law. He had his lawyers, the village attorneys, which are paid for by the taxpayers, draft up this lengthy ordinance that said, we believe that, which assumed, it just says, the voters rejected the village managerial form of government, and therefore we're going to move ahead and eliminate that position. But we're going to create a new village manager position who will be an employee of the village, and he will answer directly to the mayor, and he will only serve through the term of the mayor. So when the mayor leaves office, that village manager has to leave office, but they said, we'll give him a contract. And I'm thinking, well, what is the difference? And I think the only difference is this mayor would have more control than he would with allowing a professional make good recommendations to do things that maybe the mayor doesn't want to do.
Yeah, I'm not quite, it was confusing. We did read the agenda item. It doesn't make any sense. If they're going to go ahead and create a city manager, village manager position, why change the government to begin with?
Right.
But what's really, I think, more concerning for the residents is to understand how easy it is to change those things when you're no longer under a statutory council manager form of government. The state statute is very clear what powers rest with the village manager or city manager and what rests with the elected board and the mayor. What Mayor Pekau is doing, he's saying, no, I get to make those decisions now. And if I don't like them, I can change them tomorrow, and it only takes a vote of 4. And it also means that maybe you have a board and a president who's not always on the same page on every single issue. The decision to, based on how I read it, the decision to hire the village manager rests solely with the mayor now. And so
Right.
again, it dilutes the power of the entire board. It doesn't give
Yes.
everyone an equal voice, which I think is concerning. And it also doesn't make any sense if he's saying, listen, don't worry about this. I'm going to hire a village manager anyway. Then why are you getting rid of our form of government that has worked well for 40 years, since 1983? It doesn't make any sense. But the thing that scares me is, as with a stroke of a pen, you can do a resolution. You can say these are going to be the powers. In the next meeting, another stroke of the pen, you can change
They
it
could
again,
change it
and you can change it again.
anytime.
And any mayor and any future mayor can change it forever what they want to. They could say, I'm going to hire everyone, not just the directors and the assistant directors. I get control over everything. There's nothing that mandates under this change, if this change goes through, that we must have a professional village manager. It is completely at the whim of any mayor in the future to change it. And that's not what our residents voted on in 1983. They said, no, we want to make sure that the rules are set. We want to make sure that we have policymakers and we have professional people who must be employed by the village to do this work.
Once they change this law, the mayor says, "Oh, he said in an interview with a friend of his on some online website that I don't really follow, but he did say something to the effect of, I'm not going to take this position. Some people think that I'm going to be the mayor and I'm going to be the village manager and I'm going to pay myself the village manager's salary." Now, he could say that, but the way I read it, it said that I don't understand how this is any different than being the liquor commissioner. And as we know, in many villages and many municipalities, the mayor is also the liquor commissioner. They hold the title. They could amend this ordinance once it's passed to say the mayor can be the village manager if they want. So the word of the mayor is not something I trust. I trust the law that defines the village managerial form of government. That can't be changed without this referendum. Now, you're saying vote yes on the referendum, and I think Mayor Pekau did this on purpose to make people think that a yes vote means let's get rid of the village manager. But a yes vote in this case means let's keep the village manager form of government, correct?
Correct. Yes, we want to keep what has worked for Orland Park the last 40 years. If you look at other council manager forms of government and in the Chicago suburbs, just look at the Chicago suburbs. We are in a really good class of best in class. Naperville, for example, is the same type of government we are. Downers Grove is the same type of government we are. Highland Park is the same type of government we are. Their voters also voted it in. And they said, we are going to follow this type of form of local government that is set by state statute. And it's worked and it continues to work. And I can't fathom any reason why the board or the mayor would think it hasn't worked. It has. We are among the best in class. We need to keep it that way.
So we want voters to vote yes on
Yes.
this referendum.
Vote yes
not
to
to
keep
be
our
confused.
Yes. Vote yes.
Vote yes.
We have a website, voteyesorland.com. We have a Facebook page as well. There are statistics, there are studies, there is information from professional organizations across the country. There has been research done that shows that this is the best form of local government that you can have. 60% of all communities have this in the entire country.
Now, I've lived in Orland Park since 1985, and I have to say, over the last, I would say, prior to Mayor Pekau coming in, all of the major changes, the great things that have happened to Orland Park occurred as a result under the leadership of the former mayor. The former mayor, in my opinion, made a mistake. There were voters that were upset. He didn't address it properly. I'm not disparaging him. Keith Pekau took advantage of that, became mayor. But since he's been mayor, I have not seen one major thing that he's done other than be contentious. I haven't seen him do anything except want to change things to eliminate accountability and put things in his hands. Getting rid of the committees is an effort to consolidate and reduce the amount of people that are talking about an issue. The prior administration, they built new roads, they built beautiful parks, they had the preserves, you know, the prairie areas that were protected, the libraries, all the businesses that came in there. All that was done with a professional village manager that helped the village mayor and the trustees do the right thing. It's scary that one person, that we're kind of like a funnel, like a little pyramid rising to this one point where one person is going to make all the decisions and hold all the power. Now, I know that you have a meeting coming up at the library, the Orland Park Library, on Thursday, March 2nd at 7 p.m. And that's at 14921 South Ravinia for those people that want to go there, where you and others are going to talk about this issue and answer any questions that they may have about the referendum, which is on the April 4th ballot.
Yes, we actually have a guest speaker coming that night. I am a member of ICMA, which is the International City County Management Association. They are the premier organization that provides local government training and advice and counsel in the United States and 40 other countries around the world. As a member of ICMA, and I've been a longstanding member, I invited them to come to Orland. And to talk to our residents, our neighbors, and for us to be able to, it's not Karie Friling, who may be accused of having, you know, not liking this board or the mayor. This is a completely independent, unbiased, not there's no political baggage here. And they're
Right.
going to come and they're going to speak. They're the guest speaker. They're going to talk about the different types of forms of local government that are out there, and the pros and cons of those, and why the type of government that we currently have is the best. And they're going to reference those studies, those statistics, those things that make Orland Park so great, our hometown that we love. And so it won't be me up there. I'll introduce him, but we will have Jason Grant from ICMA, who's flying in to do this community forum on behalf of the community.
Tell us what is ICMA, just for those that are not familiar with it.
Yeah, so ICMA stands for International City County Management Association. There are over 12,000 professional local government professionals who belong to this. They are the ones who license the village managers. They provide training. They help governments and communities create the council manager form of government. They do research and studies on the best type of local government that can be offered to communities, and the pros and cons of those things. And they're very well respected. Almost every village manager I've ever worked with, including our previous ones that we had in Orland, were members of ICMA. I've been a member of ICMA for 25, almost 30 years. And they really are the most respected outside entity on local government. That's what they focus on, not state, not federal, but what is best for people at the local level. And people need to remember that your lives are most impacted by what happens at the local level. It's true. It's not just about whether your streets get plowed. You know, there's so many other things that go into the quality of life and where you live that are so important.
And I would compare this to where they say, well, the village manager isn't elected. Why do we need him? You might make the same argument about, why do we need a professional police chief? Why not just hire somebody that the mayor wants to hire?
Right.
Maybe he has somebody that he feels more confident about, and he could walk next to the mayor and the mayor can tell him how to do his job. I would prefer a police chief who has the experience of being a police officer to understand how to deal with crime. A village manager is in a way very similar, somebody that understands how to manage a government. The mayor can hire his friend, could hire the owner of a strip mall. He could hire the qualifications. There's no qualifications here. It's whoever the mayor wants to hire, he can hire. And that concerns me. And I'm looking forward to this meeting on March 2nd, Thursday, 7 p.m. at the Orland Park Library, 14921 South Ravinia Avenue. The website is www.voteyesorland.com. And of course, I'm advocating, and I know you are too, that our voters in Orland Park should vote yes on April 4th for the referendum on the managerial form of government, just to preserve the accountability of the village. Any final thoughts before we thank you for taking the time, Karie? You did so much. You know, you and I, we never agreed 100%, but we never got mean. We never got personal. We didn't attack each other. It was a different time, and I think a lot of people miss that. Today, it's very personal, combative, and angry. Tell any final thoughts about this that you think that maybe we didn't touch on that you want the listeners to understand?
I just hope that people will come out and listen. They will come to the library next week. They will listen if they have questions. I know I live this, I'm in this world for 30 years. I get it. But many people who are just living their average daily lives in Orland Park, taking care of their family, going to work, doing the things they need to do, this is a complicated issue. So we're offering this on behalf of the entire community to come to the library on March 2nd and have your questions, bring them. We will have Jason Grant from ICM answer them. We will take the time we need to make sure everyone goes into that voting booth educated on what this question really means and what impact it could have on the future of our community. This is bigger than just this mayor. This is about the future mayors, our future board, and a future for Orland.
All right. Our guest is Karie Friling. She's a former Orland Park Village employee. She was the former director of development services and former assistant village manager, serving the village of Orland Park for 13 years. She also is currently in local government management, has been for the past 30 years. So you have a lot of great experience. If anybody understands this issue, it's you, Karie. And of course, more importantly, you're from Orland Park. You and your family have lived here for the past 20 years, and I think that's important. Remember, the website, folks, is voteyesorland.com. I'm Ray Hanania. Karie, thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you again. We'll see you at the meeting at the Orland Park Library, March 2nd, Thursday at 7 p.m. Bye-bye, everybody.
You.